don't care what you say, so tell me it's okay. I don't want to know, just don't think about it. Could you reach way down inside of my throat and help me pull out, oh, all that
Thank you. Thank you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Deo. Deo.
Baby's got a burger and a chicken and that shit won't go down. Baby's got a burger and a chicken and that shit won't go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got sugar. Baby's got corrosion now. Corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Good morning from the Chicagoland area. It is 42 degrees here and cloudy. We're going to get some rain today. Supposed to be getting some Arctic blast here in a few days. I saw that coming down from Canada, as our Canadian friends say. They're not Canadian. I have a speaking problem. Hello. That's going to be not good since I got to do this for about 2.5 hours. We got a lot of news to get to today. Let me shout out everybody. We got Ghost Start over on the Rumbly Tumblies. What's up, Ghost Start? Good to see you. Peace Stuff's here. Peter Thiel says the Antichrist comes with a peace sign. Uh-oh. Israel uses peace doves everywhere. What the actual fuck? Or is that WTAF? WTAF FM. Live from the East Coast. No, I'm just kidding. I know what that is. What's up, Yonina? I'm having chicken and rice for lunch. Delicious. On Taco Tuesday. How dare you? Are you going to put it in a taco? Chicken and rice in a taco? CBC voter. What's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. I think it's everybody right now. Got kind of a sparse crowd for a Tuesday, but that's fine. We're doing our thing. I'm trying to... Guys, I'm trying to work it. I'm working behind the scenes, as they say. We're working behind the scenes. So I can try and start doing these shows on TikTok. You're like, TikTok, I don't want to watch TikTok. No, it's not for the not TikTok people. It's for the TikTok people. Because I was farting around on there yesterday. Apparently you have to jump through some hoops in order to get my I got to do like 2 more live streams on there. I did one yesterday for like 25 minutes. And it was fun. Just jabbering like a madman. And yeah, and so you have to do like 3 25-minute streams, and then I can do this show that you see right now through TikTok, but I can't do it right now yet. So I know that doesn't make any sense, but I got to jump through some hoops, but hopefully by December, we'll be doing this show on TikTok as well. Good morning, Mystery. Good to see you. Did you call me cousin, uncle? Or are you calling, did you just miss did you miss a cow? Look, I just took an edible, so, don't mind me. I was having a morning. A lot of stuff that, like my little ticker wasn't working Friday, and I forgot to fix that. I don't really like the way it looks now, but anyway, it is what it is. And some other stuff, and I tried to get the TikTok thing to work this morning. It didn't work. And anyway, those are problems just for me. You don't need to worry about that. What you need to worry about is newsy news. It's bad news. It's always bad news. Some good news, but mostly bad news. That's, like Bruce Hornsby said, that's just the way it is. You're old enough to be my aunt. Mystery, I'm 56 years old. You are not that old. Stop it. I noticed you didn't say mom. Giggity. Uncle cousin. I did some people down south. They called him Uncle Daddy. Woo! I think it's for biological reasons. Anywho, let's get to this dumb shit. What? Oh, hey, what's up, Willie? Good morning to you. And Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show. I have 2 small videos on TikTok. Willie, this may be something up your alley. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll see if I can try and work something out to where because if you can do your shows on TikTok too, while they're live, that would be pretty cool. Anyway, let's get down to business. The Bitcoin took a dump over the weekend, briefly loses all 2025 gains. We're in November, folks. All 2025 gains as crypto plunges over the weekend. I think I made a comeback, but don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. Bitcoin experienced a sharp decline this weekend, briefly erasing its 2025 gains and dipping below its year opening value of $93,507 for one coin. That's what those things are. The cryptocurrency fell to a low of $93,029 on Sunday, representing a 25% drop from its all-time high in October. Although it has rebounded slightly to around 94,209, the pressures on the market remain significant. The downturn occurred despite the reopening of the U.S. government last Thursday, which many had hoped would provide essential support for crypto markets. This year initially appeared promising for cryptocurrencies, particularly after the inauguration of Trumpy, who has established the most pro-crypto administration thus far. However, ongoing political tensions, including Trump's tariff strategies and the recent government shutdown lasting a historic 43 days, have contributed to several rapid price pullbacks for Bitcoin throughout the year. Market dynamics are also being influenced by Bitcoin whales. What the hell? Bitcoin. Those are investors holding large amounts of Bitcoin who have been offloading portions of their assets, consequently stalling price rallies, and even as positive regulatory developments emerge. Despite these sell-offs, analysts from Glassnode argue that this behavior aligns with typical patterns seen among long-term investors during the concluding stages of bull market, suggesting it is not indicative of a mass exodus. Notably, Bitcoin is not alone in its struggles, as Ethereum and Solana have also recorded declines of 7.95% and 28.3% respectively since the start of the year, while numerous altcoins have faced even steeper losses. I guess those are other coins. Looking ahead, questions linger regarding the viability of the 4-year cycle thesis, particularly given the increasing institutional support and regulatory frameworks now in place in the crypto landscape. Matt Hogan, Chief Investment Officer at Bitwise, remains optimistic, suggesting a potential Bitcoin resurgence in 2026, driven by the debasement trade thesis and a broader trend towards increased adoption of stablecoins, tokenization, and decentralized finance. Hogan emphasized the soundness of the underlying fundamentals, pointing to a positive outlook for the sector in the long term. And if you know what that shit meant, you can tell me. Hang on a second. I don't have Bitcoin. I don't do Bitcoin. But I figure there's Bitcoin enthusiasts out there. What's up, Wesley? Good to see you. Good morning, sir. So I figured I'd pass that little nugget of goodness along to you, or badness, whatever you want to call it. Meanwhile, down in Florida, hundreds of children said rescued in statewide operation, 29 in Fort Myers. This is coming from WGCU. WGCU, your news for Southwest Florida. A statewide rescue operation has reportedly recovered 122 children. Well, that's 100, but okay, whatever, semantics. And is being touted as one of the largest child recovery operations in American history. Florida Attorney General James Utmeyer announced the results of the operation yesterday, calling it Operation Home for the Holidays. Utmeyer said the U.S. Marshals Service-led recovery initiative located or safely recovered 122 children. He said the operation surpassed the scale and success of Operation Dragon Eye, conducted earlier this year, and expanded across Tampa Bay, Orlando, Jacksonville, Fort Myers, and into 9 other states. Utmeyer, in information posted on the tweeters about the case, said he wasn't aware yet of any people in the country illegally were involved in this case. He added that every time his office runs a child predatory sting, around 20% or so are people who are in country illegally. So these children, 80% of the predators are domestic, eh? Why aren't we going after them, Jeffrey Epstein? A similar operation run earlier this year in Florida recovered 60 children, the Attorney General's office said. The operation reportedly also resulted in 6 felony arrests with additional charges expected as investigations continue. Specific details about the types of situations the children were found in and what locations they were found at were not available. A Florida Attorney General office spokesman said that due to the victims being children, many details are withheld for confidentiality reasons. As criminal cases were filed, we'll be able to get you more information as it relates to the defendants. Information from Utmeyer's office said that over a 2-week span, the multidisciplinary task force located vulnerable youth throughout Central Florida, including 57 children in the Tampa Bay region, 14 in Orlando, 22 in Jacksonville, and 29 in Fort Myers. The operation also resulted in recoveries in 9 other states. The children ranged in age from 23 months to 17 years old. The information release said that many of those recovered experienced various levels of abuse, neglect, exploitation, or exposure to other criminal activity. And while that is good news, I mean, it's not nearly enough. That's a lot of times your predators are going to be people that you may know. But also there are nowadays too, there are those that are just kids just getting snatched off the streets. These are harrowing times, folks. But we'll see if it gets better. Meanwhile, U.S. Marines conducting drills in Trinidad and Tobago, not Trinidad or Tobago, because it's one. TNT. Hey, just miles from Venezuela's coast. U.S. Marines began drills on Sunday in TNT, the Caribbean island nation that's just miles off the coast of Venezuela, as the U.S. military continues its activity in the region amid a push towards a potential U.S. attack aimed at ousting Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. U.S. Embassy in Trinidad and Tobago said the U.S. Marine Corps 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, the MEU, will be deployed to the Caribbean nation from November 16th, which was Sunday, to November 21st, and will participate in exercises with the TNT Defense Force. According to Task and Purpose, that's TNP, the deployment came after the Trinidadian? Who's your Trinidadian? Attorney General said the U.S. military would intensify its exercises in the country. The 22nd MEU has been in the Caribbean since it was deployed to the region with the 2 Iwo Jima amphibious ready group in August. Maduro has criticized the increased U.S. drills in TNT, calling them irresponsible and warning against the U.S. push towards war. The people of Trinidad and Tobago will see if They continue allowing their waters and land to be used to gravely threaten the peace of the Caribbean, he said over the weekend. A U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald Ford, the only man, the only president who was never elected president, just arrived in the Caribbean, and so they named a aircraft carrier after him. Sure, why not? And according to the Washington Post, its fighter jet pilots have been studying Venezuela's air defenses as the Trump administration is considering bombing the country. Trump suggested on Sunday that his administration was in talks with the Maduro government. We'll tell you more about that later in the old propaganda watch. The U.S. has continued its bombing campaign against alleged drug-running boats in the region, which has received criticism from U.S. allies over its clear illegality under both U.S. and international law. But Trinidadian, Prime Minister Kamala Persad Bissessar, KPB, has strongly supported the campaign despite fears among her country's fishing community. Of course, it's Trinidad and Tobago. It's probably about the size of Cleveland, if that big. So, of course, they're going to be scared of the United States. Bodies of people believed to be killed in the U.S. airstrikes have washed up in Trinidad and Tobago, and fishermen in the country have said the U.S. bombing campaign has them fearing for their lives and jobs. Yes, because that's the thing. This Prime Minister KBP or whatever, KPB, doesn't realize is like, if the Trinidad and Tobago fishermen are out there, then they could be thought of as drug dealers too. People are so stupid. People are so stupid. Chevy Chase looked like, I know, right? They didn't even try. He could just do the voice. That was it. Fuckery in the Caribbean. What would Billy Ocean say? I guess we could ask him. He's still alive, isn't he? Meanwhile, Ecuador told U.S. go piss up a rope as they reject return of U.S. bases. Voters in Ecuador have rejected a proposal to bring U.S. military bases back to the country in a national referendum held on Sunday. With around 95% of ballots counted, the official tally shows that 60.58% voted against President Daniel Noboa's initiative to allow foreign troops to operate in Ecuador as part of efforts to fight organized crime and drug trafficking, all those in quotes. Noboa said he accepts the results. We consulted with the Ecuadorians and they have spoken. We fulfilled our promise to ask them directly. We respect the will of the Ecuadorian people, he wrote on the tweeters. Look at that face. Looks like he's about to do something with Bill Clinton. Hey! U.S. troops were stationed at an airbase in the port city of Manta until 2009, when then President Rafael Correa refused to renew the lease and banned foreign bases in Ecuador. Good for him. Noboa offered President Donald Trump the opportunity to station troops in the country at different times, pitching Manta, the city of Salinas, and one of the islands in the Galapagos Archipelago as possible locations. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem met with Noboa in July as she toured Ecuador's military sites. The vote took place during the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean, where Trump ordered strikes on alleged cartel vessels and accused the leftist presidents of Venezuela and Colombia of aiding narco-terrorists. At the same time, Trump has sought to strengthen ties with conservative leaders in the region, including Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele, who offered to house migrants deported from the U.S. in Salvadorian torture gulags. I'm sorry, prisons. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It was torture gulags. So Ecuador said, no dice, precious. You keep your jarheads away from us. 82 people now? Jesus Christ. 82 fishermen have been murdered. Donald Trump's rectum had electrical currents with Bill. Jesus! Jesus, Willie! Wait a minute. Let me look. Wait, I can't find the lie. I can't find the. All right, just fair warning. Yesterday I went out for my walk. It was fairly chilly, and I was wearing shorts, which was fine. And everything, but apparently my nose got said, "Oh, you want to do stupid shit, huh?" Okay. So my sinuses are a bit on the wonky side. Anyway, we got more news, maybe. Do we? Oh yeah, sure. Here in the old US of A, UCLA facility or faculty gets big win in suit against Trump's university attacks. Shadow prodding. You guys stop it. Friday, a U.S. District Court issued a preliminary injunction blocking the U.S. government from halting federal funding at UCLA or any other school in the University of California system. The ruling came in response to a suit filed by groups representing the faculty at these schools, challenging the Trump administration's attempts to force UCLA into a deal that would substantially revise instruction and policy. The court's decision lays out how the Trump administration's attacks on universities follow a standard plan. Use accusations of anti-Semitism to justify an immediate cut to funding. That's one. Then use the loss of money to compel an agreement that would result in revisions to how the university is run. I don't know. I think that sounds like extortion. Isn't that what the kids say? Isn't that what the kids call it? Extortion. I think that's what that is. The court finds that this plan was deficient on multiple grounds, from violating legal procedures for cutting funding to an illegal attempt and suppressing the First Amendment rights of faculty. The result is a reprieve for the entire UCal system, as well as a clear pathway for any universities to fight back against Trump's attacks on research and education. The judge overseeing this case, Rita Lynn, issued separate documents describing the reasoning behind her decision and the sanctions she has placed on the Trump administration. In the first, she lays out the argument that the threats facing the UC system, and most notably UCLA, are part of a scripted campaign deployed against many other universities, one that proceeds through several steps. Yeah, I mean, they've seen this before, like at the Ivy League schools too. The Trump administration's task force to combat anti-Semitism, or TFCAS, is central to this effort, which starts with the opening of a civil rights investigation against the university that was the site of an anti-Israel protest during the conflict in Gaza. Rooting out anti-Semitism is undisputedly a laudable and important goal, Judge Lynn wrote, but the investigations in many cases take place after those universities have already taken corrective steps, which the Trump administration seemingly never considers. Instead, while the investigations are still ongoing, agencies throughout the federal government cancel funding for research and education meant for that university and announced that there will be no future funding without an agreement. You want the money, baby? You got to play by our rules. You hear me? Bubba. The final step is a proposed settlement that would include large payments, over $1.2 billion in UCLA's case, and a set of conditions that alter university governance and instruction. These conditions often have little to no connection with anti-Semitism. While all of this was ostensibly meant to combat anti-Semitism, the plaintiffs in the case presented a huge range of quotes from administration officials, including the head of the task force to combat anti-Semitism, saying the goal was to suppress certain ideas on campus. The unrebutted record in this case shows that defendants have used the threat of investigations and economic sanctions to coerce the UC to stamp out faculty, staff, and student woke, left, anti-American, anti-Western, and Marxist speech, Lynn said. Hey, Kate. That's fine. That's fine, Kate. Good morning to you. You can listen. I'm not very pretty to look at anyway. I know, right? What anti-Semitism, the definition of which really depends on what angle you're trying to work. And even before any sort of agreement was reached, there was extensive testimony that people on campus changed their teaching and research to avoid further attention from the administration. Plaintiffs' members expressed fear that researching, teaching, and speaking on disfavored topics will trigger further retaliatory funding cancellations against the UC, Laine wrote, and that they will be blamed for the retaliation. They also described fears that the UC will retaliate against them to avoid further funding cuts or in order to comply with the proposed settlement agreement. That's a problem, given that teaching and research topics are forms of speech and therefore protected by the First Amendment. These are classic, predictable First Amendment harms and exactly what defendants publicly said that they intended, Laine concluded. But the First Amendment isn't the only issue here. The Civil Rights Act, most notably Title VI, lays out a procedure for cutting federal funding, including warnings and hearings before any funds are shut off. That level of coercion is also limited to cases where there's an indication that voluntary compliance won't work. Any funding cut would need to target the specific programs involved and the money allocated to them. There's nothing in Title VI that enables the sort of financial payments that the government has been demanding and in some case receiving from schools. It's pretty obvious that none of these procedures are being followed here, and as Laine noted in her ruling, defendants conceded at oral argument that of the billions of dollars of federal university funding suspended across numerous agencies in recent months, not a single agency has followed the procedures required by Title VI and 9. 6 and 9, stop it. She found that the government decided it wasn't required to follow the Civil Rights Act procedures. Reading through the decision, it becomes hard to tell where the government offered any defense of its actions at all. The decision to ignore all existing procedures in turn causes additional problems, including violations of the 10th Amendment, which limits the actions that the government can take. And it runs afoul of the Administrative Procedures Act, which prohibits the government from taking actions that are arbitrary and capricious. All of this provided Laine with extensive opportunities to determine that the plaintiffs, largely organizations that represent the faculty at University of California schools, are likely to prevail in their suit and thus are deserving of a preliminary injunction to block the federal government's actions. But first, she had to deal with a recent Supreme Court precedent holding that cases involving federal money belong in a different court system. She did so by arguing that this case is largely about First Amendment and federal procedures rather than any sort of contract for federal money. Money is being used as a lever here, so their ruling must involve restoring the money to address the free speech issues. That issue will undoubtedly be picked up on appeal as it makes its way through the courts. So there's more to this, but we got more to get to. This is from Ars Technica. I'm going to have this, all our news links that I read will be in our Substack. You'll have them about 30 minutes after the show's over with. It's extrabullet.substack.com. In fact, let me, I think at the link's down below in the description. Is that it? Okay, we'll see. Laine P. Don't forget to watch the Undercurrent with me and Laine P tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Yes, and we'll be talking about the aftermath of the now that Snap is back? Question mark. Is it really back? Is it back for some people? We'll let you know tomorrow. So that's going to be on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and Instagram too. So if you're on the IG or the Gram, check us out there. It's good stuff. It's check under Laine Petersen's account there. Yeah. So this is a big win for colleges that are having to deal with Trump's bullshit with this, and it is straight up extortion, is what's going on. It's like, they're telling these colleges, if you want this federal money, you're gonna play ball and say what we tell you to say, or you're gonna clamp down on people's First Amendment rights, or no money. We'll see what happens. But in this case, I mean, the California university system is huge, and will probably others will probably follow suit as well. So All right. Well, let's see. So, let's change our focus to Gaza. You know, they're trying. They're people, except for the Gazans and the Palestinians, are allowed to fight to determine their own destiny. Apparently, as UN Security Council adopts resolution placing Gaza under control of a U.S.-led board. What could possibly go wrong? The UN Security Council on Monday adopted a U.S. proposed resolution that places Gaza under the control of a U.S.-led body dubbed the Board of Peace, not B-O-R-E-D, B-O-A-R-D, for at least 2 years, and authorizes the deployment of an international force to the Palestinian territory that will operate under the watch of the U.S. military. Yeah, that sounds real good. The 15-member Security Council passed a resolution with 13 voting in favor and none voting against. Russia and China abstained from voting, choosing not to use their veto power to stop the resolution. Ahead of the vote, U.S. Ambassador to the UN Mike Waltz warned that a vote against the resolution was a vote to return to war. The resolution endorses the 20-point U.S.-Israeli Gaza plan released by the White House on September 29th, which it refers to as the Comprehensive Plan. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Snap. Everybody on Snap has to reapply because of corruption. It just means you're just going to reject them. That's all. The resolution states that the Security Council welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace, or BOP. Bop! Bop! Bop, bop, bop. Nobody asked the Palestinians. Which will be headed by Trump, of course. It describes the BOP as a transitional administration with international legal personality that will set the framework and coordinate funding for the redevelopment of Gaza pursuant to the Comprehensive Plan. The UN resolution says that the BOP will remain the authority in Gaza until the Palestinian Authority has satisfactorily completed its reform program, though Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly rejected the idea of the PA having a role in Gaza. What, Palestinians not having a role in Palestine? What? Yeah, that sounds silly, right? And whether the PA has reformed enough to take over in Gaza would likely be up to the U.S. and Israel. Oh, isn't that convenient? Yeah, they could have vetoed that garbage. I read an article stating where Russia said, yeah, they're going to watch. Basically, they're going to watch the United States go into another Vietnam with this. Because Hamas is not going to give up them weapons. They're not, especially now. After this vote, hell no, they're not gonna give up them weapons. But that's fucked up from Russia. So yeah, go ahead, run that shit. You'll be sorry. But they could have stopped it. The U.S. initially didn't mention the possibility of a Palestinian state in its draft resolution, but added a vague mention of one in response to feedback from Arab states. The resolution states that a path towards a Palestinian state may be possible once the PA makes the unspecified reforms. But the Israeli government has been explicit in its opposition to a Palestinian state. And the resolution makes no mention of the Israeli-occupied West Bank, where Israel continues to expand illegal Jewish settlements. The resolution authorizes the BOP's control of Gaza until December 31st, 2027, and leaves open the possibility of the Security Council extending its mandate. Sure. Over the next 2 years, the BOP is tasked with overseeing a Palestinian technocratic apolitical committee of competent Palestinians from the Strip, which will be responsible for day-to-day operations of Gaza's civil service and administrations. In other words, sellouts. The resolution also authorizes Security Council member states working with the BOP to establish a temporary international stabilization force, the ISF, not to be confused with the other demons, the IDF, in Gaza to deploy under a unified command acceptable to the BOP. U.S. Central Command has established a military outpost in southern Israel to oversee the ISF, and according to Israeli media reports, the U.S. may build a large base on the Gaza border to house international troops. Oh, yeah, for international troops. Wink, 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 wink. What's up, Steve Woldbrand? Good to see you. Good to see you, buddy. The ISF is supposed to work with Israel and Egypt on the demilitarization of Gaza, but Hamas has repeatedly rejected the idea of disarming without the establishment of a Palestinian state, and countries willing to send troops to Gaza don't want to be involved if it means fighting Hamas on behalf of Israel. Yeah. And I think that's why Russia didn't veto it. It was like, let's see what you do. And that means then everybody will start shitting on the United States. Yeah, Trump really didn't need to do this. This was not a good idea, among many. In response to the resolution being passed, Hamas said that it would consider the ISF a party to the conflict if it were tasked with disarmament. Yeah, so they'll go after them too. Assigning the international force with tasks and roles inside the Gaza Strip, including disarming the resistance, strips it of its neutrality and turns it into a party to the conflict in favor of the occupation, Hamas said, according to Reuters, which is not a lie. The group said that the resolution fails to meet Palestinians' rights and demands and seeks to impose an international trusteeship on the enclave that Palestinians and resistance factions oppose. The resolution also provides no guarantees that Israel would withdraw its troops from Gaza, as it says the IDF will only leave once the ISF is deployed, and Israel has agreed that certain standards, milestones, and time frames linked to demilitarization have been met. Israeli troops currently occupy more than 50% of the Gaza Strip. They're still in Lebanon. These fuckers don't ever do what they say. They don't cease fire. They don't leave. Hamas knows this. They're like, yeah, you guys can have your little pretend club over here, but we're not giving up our weapons, dude. No fucking way. The resolution tasks the U.S.-led BOP with overseeing the reconstruction of Gaza, but the U.S. is currently pushing a plan that would allow reconstruction only in the Israeli-occupied side of Gaza, which Arab states fear will lead to a permanent Israeli occupation. The U.S. is also reportedly in contact with Israeli-backed militias and gangs who are operating in IDF-controlled areas and is considering using them to enforce order in Gaza, which would almost certainly lead to inter-Palestinian conflict. Yeah, and that did well when that GHF or whatever, when they brought in aid and then people went to get the aid, they were either shot at and killed or these gangs stole the shit. Despite the issues with the U.S.'s plan for Gaza, Trump celebrated the UN Security Council passing the resolution in a post on Truth Social and reaffirmed that he would be in charge of the BOP. Congratulations to the world on the incredible vote of the United Nations Security Council just moments ago, acknowledging and endorsing the Board of Peace, which will be chaired by me and include the most powerful and respected leaders throughout the world, the president mumbled. The members of the board and many more exciting announcements were made. Fuck you. BOP. Yeah. Hamas is not stupid. They're not stupid. They've seen this song and dance before. And if you put U.S. troops in there, that's it. Game over. That is it. Because people are pretty much almost fed up with Israel as it is, right? And you're going to put more troops in there? Forget about it. But now Trump is saying that he's considering skipping the disarmament phase of the Gaza plan amid a deadlock. Oh, really? The U.S. is looking to forego the stage of the Gaza ceasefire initiative, which involves deploying an international security force to the Strip to disarm Hamas and other Palestinian resistance factions. Israeli media reported over the weekend the October ceasefire agreement remains in its first stage as talks continue to stall over the issue of Hamas's disarmament and post-war administration of Gaza. Yeah, it is like watching really bad scripted cringe comedy. Yeah. It's like a streaming service. This potential change in U.S. direction is causing ongoing negotiations to deadlock, an Israeli security source told Hebrew news outlet Channel 13. Sesame Street. Was it Channel 13? Was it Billy Joel song? Okay. The source said when Washington is struggling to get commitments from countries to directly participate in disarming the factions. Yeah. Nobody wants a piece of Hamas. All right. Their backs are against the wall and they'll do anything. So don't be stupid. This interim solution is the worst there is, the source added, referring to the plan to forego disarmament and skip ahead to reconstruction. Hamas has been strengthening in recent weeks since the end of the war. There can be no rehabilitation before demilitarization. It is contrary to Trump's plan. Gaza must be demilitarized, the Israeli source went on to say. Well, they're not going to be, you're going to have to kill them all. That's how the only way you're going to demilitarize them is you're going to have to kill them all. And that's what they know that. That's why they're trying to kill them all. Channel 13 notes that there has been a collapse in ceasefire talks over Washington's inability to form the international force referred to in Donald Trump's peace plan as the ISF. The U.S. recently submitted a draft for the establishment of the force and is seeking the UN backing to implement the plan, which they did. The draft includes a broad mandate for Washington to govern Gaza for at least 2 years. We told you about that. Russia has proposed its own draft, which entirely removes the border peace clause and calls on the UN to identify options for the ISF. I think we told you about that last year. How old is this? Is this an old one? This is from the 16th. Why are they doing this? Okay, so Arab and Islamic states have leaned towards supporting the U.S. draft because Washington is the only party capable of enforcing its resolution on the ground and pressuring Israel to implement it if they want to. A source told Ashaq al-Sawat, adding that there is firm American intent to deploy forces soon, even if that requires sending a multinational force. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, this just reinforces that Hamas is not going to demilitarize, right? They want the Palestinian state. That's what they've been wanting all along, and they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it, and so they're not going to disarm. And so that's the back and forth here. They said, well, you're never going to have peace until you disarm. And so, well, we're never going to have peace if we disarm. That's what they're saying. Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. Well, get some rest. You can always watch this later or watch this again on Friday. It's all good. It's all good. Get some rest. Meanwhile, these evil motherfuckers, Israel's Ben-Gvir calls for the killing of Palestinian Authority officials if UN backs Palestinian state. Israel Minister of the Lord Satan, Ben-Gvir, has called for the assassination of Palestinian Authority officials and for PA President Mahmoud Abbas to be placed in solitary confinement if the UN advances the recognition of a Palestinian state. It's just how psycho these people are. A Palestinian state of the invented people who call themselves Palestinian, invented people, says the people who go by some holy book that is just, I gotta have faith. Must never be established because the aspiration of those seeking to establish such a state is to build it on the ruins of the state of Israel. Ben-Gvir said in a meeting of his Jewish Power Party, according to the Times of Israel. You can go back to the 30s. It says Palestine on the maps, dumbass. If they accelerate recognition of a Palestinian terror state, orders must be given for targeted killings of senior Palestinian Authority officials who are terrorists in every respect, as well as an order for the arrest of Mahmoud Abbas. There is a solitary confinement cell ready for him in Ketzia prison, he added. There's the terrorist right there, not having a tie long enough, you fat fuck. As the Minister of National Security, Ben-Gvir oversees Israeli prisons, where at least 98 Palestinians have died since October 7, 2023, according to new data, due to torture, food deprivation, medical neglect, and other Israeli abuses. Ben-Gvir's call for the killing of PA officials came ahead of the National Security Council resolution that authorized the deployment of the ISF to Gaza. Some states initially objected to the resolution because it made no mention of a Palestinian state, prompting the U.S. to add an amendment that says, once the PA faithfully, blah, 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 once you suck our dicks, then you can become a thing. And then we're still not going to let you do it because Israel don't want it. The U.S. issued a joint statement with several Arab states on Friday that said the U.S. resolution offers a pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. But the Israeli government has made clear it's very opposed to the establishment of a Palestinian state, and the U.S. plan for Gaza doesn't address the Israeli occupation of the West Bank. You know the thing. Indeed. Speaker Mike Johnson claims the Epstein's file can't be released unredacted because they contain intelligence agency material that falls under, wait for it, national security. Take a drink, everybody, national security. You knew, I told you some bullshit was going to happen. I told you. But, you know, you didn't need me to tell you that. You knew that too. Dumb motherfuckers, man. They're going to release the files. No, they're not. And if they did, it's all going to be redacted. Most of Gaza's schools are destroyed and hundreds of thousands of children cannot go back to class. Hassan Yunus looked dejected as she stood outside a cluster of tents surrounded by rubble and debris, a wasteland that is a common sight across the Gaza Strip. A tiny encampment was yet another makeshift school that has no room for her teenage son, Kareem. Most of the schools are destroyed, she told the AP. Every school I go to tells me there is no room. More than 600,000 Palestinian children in Gaza have missed the past 2 years of school because of the war between Israel and the militant Hamas group. The war between Israel and Hamas. Fuck you, AP. Instead of studying and socializing, they have been repeatedly displaced, fled airstrikes from Israel, and shelling from Israel, displaced by Israel, and often spent their days scouring for water and food for their families, thanks to Israel. I am adding the Israel part because AP is propagandized as fuck. With a ceasefire reached last month, except for, at least the Hamas's ceased firing. Humanitarian officials are now working frantically to reopen dozens of makeshift schools. Sean Kriksik, a spokesman for the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, says it's crucial for children to return to classes as soon as possible, not just because of basic education, but also for their mental health. In the weeks to come, if we don't offer education, he said, there could be terrible consequences for an entire generation. UNICEF estimates that over 630,000 Palestinian children missed out on school during the war. Crick said that so far only about 100,000 children have been able to return. Separately, UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, is providing some education through their contracted teachers for about 40,000 students. Most of the UNRWA-run schools, which catered to half of the Gaza children before the war, have since turned into shelters for displaced people. Yeah, so And the children keep suffering, right? They're still, you know, I mean, why would you even go to school if you think they're going to blow up the school? They blow up the hospitals. And if that's not bad enough, Israel destroys Gaza's historical palace with over 20,000 artifacts looted. Gaza's historical and cultural heritage has not been spared Israeli bombardment during Tel Aviv's 2-year war, with over 20,000 rare artifacts spanning from prehistoric eras to the Ottoman period missing and looted. The Israeli army has systematically and extensively destroyed Gaza's archaeological sites as part of a policy aimed at erasing Palestinian identity. Ismail al-Thawabet, head of Gaza's government media office, told Anadolu on Monday. According to official data, Israeli forces fully or partially destroyed more than 316 archaeological sites and buildings in the Gaza Strip, most dating back to the Mamluk and Ottoman eras, which others trace back to the early Islamic centuries and the Byzantine period. Qasr al-Basha, a Mamluk area palace built on a UNESCO heritage site dating back to 800 BC, was not spared from Israel's systematic targeting of Gaza's history. Located in the Al-Daraj neighborhood of Gaza City's Old City, 70% of the Qasr al-Basha palace was damaged in Israeli attacks, according to Hamuda al-Dadar, a cultural heritage expert at the Center for Cultural Heritage Preservation in Bethlehem, cultural heritage in the occupied West Bank. Technicians and workers continue searching for scattered artifacts under the rubble using simple tools to recover and preserve what remains of Gaza's historical identity. What happened to Gaza's heritage was not only destruction, it was organized looting, a practice criminalized under international law and considered an assault on global cultural heritage, Thawabta said. He added that over 220,000 rare artifacts spanning prehistoric eras to the Ottoman period housed in the museum had disappeared during the Israeli war. And kind of like remember during the Iraq war when troops were like looting, these old temples and sites and stuff and stealing everything. You remember that? Museums. Dadar also confirmed the disappearance of thousands of rare and diverse artifacts after Israeli forces raided and destroyed the site. Each piece of these artifacts is historically significant and represents a chapter of Palestine's civilization history, Dadar said, calling the looting a grave cultural crime that affects national identity and humanity's shared heritage. The expert noted that the site had previously suffered extensive destruction during earlier Israeli military operations before its withdrawal in 1994. After the Israeli withdrawal, the Palestinian Authority restored the palace and turned it into a museum featuring valuable historical collections. Israel occupied the Gaza Strip in 1967 and withdrew in 1994 under the 93 Oslo Accords with the umbrella Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO. In 2005, it dismantled its settlements in Gaza under its unilateral disengagement plan. Once again, during the latest war that started in October 2023, the palace suffered destruction and the looting of its archaeological objects. More than 69,000 Palestinians have been killed, mostly women and children, and those numbers are very low and not even close to being accurate. So they're destroying their lives, they're destroying their homeland, and they're destroying their history. And people think Hamas is going to disarm. Woo! So silly. So silly. And as we told you, at least 98 Palestinians died in Israeli custody since 2023. A report released yesterday by Physicians for Human Rights Israel claimed that nearly 100 Palestinians have been killed while being held in detention by Israel since the start of the war in Gaza on October 7, 2023. The report, which PHRI said was based on testimonies, official records, and extensive evidence collected by the organization, shows that at least 98 Palestinians died in Israeli custody that we know of. The report says that the deaths were part of a deeply concerning pattern of systemic human rights violations committed against Palestinians, and that people who died while in custody included the young and elderly, the healthy and the sick alike. PHRI also emphasized that the records in its report are far from complete and indicated that the full death toll of Palestinians who died in custody is even higher. Breaking things down further, the organization said it found that 42 Palestinians died while in custody of the Israel Prison Service, including Palestinians from Gaza, the West Bank, and even Palestinians who held Israeli citizenship. A further 52 Palestinians from Gaza died while in Israeli military custody. The report shows a mixture of deaths from medical neglect, from physical abuse, or some combination of the two causes. Witness testimony given to PHRI from both Palestinian detainees and Israeli physicians depicted military detention facilities as, quote, sites of systematic torture and abuse where dozens of Palestinians from Gaza died while in military custody. Ray Gerard, advocacy director at human rights organization Dawn, said the PHRI report was more evidence that Israel has become one of the worst systematic abusers of human rights in the world. And but it's a democracy. It's the only democracy in the Middle East. And he pointed the finger at the U.S. for continuing to fund and enable such abuses. Despite overwhelming evidence of these crimes and grave violations of human rights, documented even by the State Department's own watchdog, not a single Israeli unit has been deemed ineligible for U.S. weapons, making the United States complicit in Israel's systematic torture regime, said Gerard. And then it goes on with some inaccurate numbers there of how many people have died, because we know there's been many, many more. Meanwhile, Lebanon, what is this? Ain't nobody talking to you, Willis. Lebanon plans UN complaint against Israel over a border wall. Uh-oh. We're gonna get the Mexicans to pay for it. Idiot. A spokesperson for the UN Secretary General Stefan Dujarric, it's not delivery, it's Dujarric, said on Friday the wall has made more than 4,000 square meters. Oh, wait a minute, I missed this whole fucking thing here. Sorry. Lebanon will file a complaint to the UN Security Council against Israel for constructing a concrete wall along Lebanon's southern border that extends beyond the Blue Line. The Lebanese presidency said on Saturday the Blue Line is a UN-mapped line separating Lebanon from Israel and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Israeli forces withdrew to the Blue Line when they left South Lebanon in 2000. A spokesperson for Dujarric said the walls made more than 4,000 square meters, nearly an acre of Lebanese territory, inaccessible to the local population. The Lebanese presidency echoed his remarks, saying in a statement that Israel's ongoing construction constituted a violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701 and an infringement on Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Boop, 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 boop. There's a wall down there. Dujarric said the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, that's UNIFIL, had requested that the wall be removed. An Israeli military spokesman denied on Friday that the wall crossed the Blue Line. The wall is part of a broader IDF plan whose construction began in 2022, the spokesperson said, referring to the IDF. Since the start of the war and as part of lessons learned from it, the IDF has been advancing a series of measures, including reinforcing the physical barrier along the northern border. UNIFIL, established in 1978, operates between the Litani River in the north and the Blue Line in the south. The mission has more than 10,000 troops from 50 countries and about 800 civilian staff, according to its website. Build that wall. There it is. Yeah. Yeah, because walls really help, right? Idiots. Meanwhile, Israeli weapons firm set to close its UK wing. Aw, single tier. This is from Declassified UK. A British weapons firm owned by the Israeli government is set to shut down, Declassified can reveal. Are you okay? Or are you okay? Advanced Systems Limited is registered in London, but records show it is a subsidiary of Israel's state-owned arms giant Rafael. The closure comes after an investigation by Declassified in July, which found the company had donated at least almost 1,500 pounds to partner with a cross-party group of MPs, members of parliament. The all-party parliamentary group, APBG, on defense technology accepted the money despite rules that ban funding directly or indirectly from a foreign government. Westminster authorities subsequently launched an inquiry into the APPG's chairman, Tory MP Dr. Neil Shastri Hurst, and the group quickly disbanded. At the time, RUK Advanced Systems Limited did not respond to a request for comment, but its website was taken down less than 12 hours after being contacted by Declassified. Good for you. Now the firm has filed a so-called First Gazette notice to Companies House, which initiates the process of closing it. A source claimed the closure is not linked to Declassified's investigations, but no official reason has been given yet. But, Declassified's like, yeah, but we did that. Questions have also been raised over the true nature of RUK's work and its presence in the UK. The company claimed to be a UK manufacturer with products made in UK. Its website advertised a range of military equipment, including urban combat missiles and hard-kill torpedoes, but Declassified could not find any evidence that the company had manufacturing facilities. The address given in official company documents is a service address with no RUK staff present. They eventually tracked the company to a tiny building on a technology park in Farnborough, which appeared to be just an office. Meanwhile, financial accounts showed that only 5 people were employed by RUK last year and 4 in 2023. Searches of LinkedIn also failed to identify a single RUK employee with a physical manufacturing role. Meanwhile, Raphael's website claims that its UK representative was a company called ERCAS BV, ERCAS-BV, and gave an address in central London. But when Declassified visited the office, the entire building was closed due to construction work, and even the letterbox was secured shut. Workers on, I guess that's a mailbox. Workers on site told them the building had been out of service for several years. Raphael still owns the Newcastle-based firm Petersen Engineering. Raphael has been approached for comment, but I'm pretty sure they're not. I love me some Declassified UK. They get up in there and they cause trouble. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to see, that is. But it's a beautiful thing to see there. But meanwhile, back in Germany, Germany to lift partial suspension of weapons exports to Israel. Oh, shocking. Yeah, I saw that the MBS coming to the White House. Fuck those guys. No, they're just coming there to kiss Trump's ass. Germany said yesterday that it would lift a partial suspension on arms exports to Israel that it imposed back in August on weapons that could be used in Gaza. German government spokesman Sebastian Hill said, said Berlin would revert to its previous policy starting on November 24th. The government will, as a general rule, the government will, as a general rule, revert to case-by-case reviews in decisions on arms exports and respond to further developments. 9, he said. Hill said that the U.S. brokered ceasefire deal, which Israel has repeatedly violated, was the basis for this decision, and we expect everyone to abide by the agreements that have been made, which he said includes maintaining the ceasefire. Germany is the second largest arms supplier after the U.S., which continued unrestricted arms exports to Israel throughout its genocidal war, according to data from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, or SIPRI. From 2019 to 2023, the U.S. and Germany accounted for 99% of Israel's arms imports, with the U.S. providing 69%, nice, and Germany providing 30%. The providing of weapons was not nice, but the 69% number, that was nice. While Germany said that it suspended the shipment of weapons that Israel could use in Gaza, it continued to provide weapons that it considered defensive. Wink, 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 wink. According to the German news agency DPA, Berlin authorized fresh arms exports to Israel worth at least $2.89 million in September. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said that he welcomed German Chancellor Friedrich Merz's decision to resume all arms exports to Israel. I call on other governments to adopt similar decisions following Germany, Saar wrote on X. Please give us weapons. Please. Please, I want weapons. Weapons, nums. Yeah, exactly. Uns wir broken, we need Deutschmarks. Yeah. Fucking Nazis. Meanwhile, new probe implicates U.S. Marines in new notorious 2005 massacre in Iraq. A new investigation has uncovered evidence implicating 2 Marines in the 2005 Haditha massacre during the Iraq War, raising new questions about the U.S. inquiry and accountability for war crimes. You think? At least 24 civilians, including women and children, were killed by U.S. Marines on November 19, 2005 in the Iraqi town of Haditha. Safa Yunus' entire family was among those killed by U.S. forces. The killing of Safa's family was part of what became known as the Haditha massacre. The Marines entered 3 homes in the town that day. This was 20 years ago, killing almost every civilian they encountered, including 4 women and 6 children. U.S. Marines. A driver and 4 students in a vehicle were also shot dead on their way to college. The Marines claimed they were responding to gunfire after a roadside bomb went off, killing one of their squad members and injuring 2 others. No criminal convictions resulted from the longest war crimes investigation of the Iraq War. Those Marines sound like those IDF people in Israel who just do whatever they want. The U.S. initially charged 4 Marines with murder, but they each gave conflicting accounts. Over time, U.S. prosecutors dropped charges against 3 of the 4, and they were granted immunity from legal action. Now, 20 years on, a BBC investigation has uncovered evidence that implicates 2 Marines who were never brought to trial in the killing of Safa's family, according to a forensic expert. The evidence, mainly statements and testimony given in the aftermath of the killings, raises doubts about the American investigation into what happened that day, you think, and poses significant questions over how U.S. armed forces are held to account. They're not held to account. There's one scapegoat, and then the rest get to go free. The Marine left to face trial in 2012 with squad leader Staff Sergeant Frank Wuterich, who pleaded guilty to 1 count of negligent dereliction of duty. Wow. A light charge unrelated to direct involvement in the killings. So he got a slap on the wrist. The release of a pre-trial hearing has now brought new information to light. In it, a junior member of the squad that entered Haditha admits to killing Eunice's father as he opened the door to the family home. Lance Corporal Humberto Mendoza was never charged with the killing, despite admitting to seeing Eunice's father raise his hands upon opening the door. Forensic expert Michael Maloney was sent to the town in 2006 by the Naval Criminal Investigation Service, the NCIS, you've heard of that TV show, to probe the killings. I wonder if they sent Mark Harmon too. He highlighted significant discrepancies in Mendoza's account, which had changed throughout the legal process. Using the new information, Maloney concluded Mendoza confessed to everything except for pulling the trigger. Eunice provided evidence to prosecutors in 2006, but it was never shown in court. After the front door of the home was breached, the U.S. Marine Squad moved through the building. The Marine who opened the bedroom door threw a grenade inside that failed to detonate, Eunice said. He then entered the room and shot those inside, with Eunice the only survivor. Mendoza is the sole Marine who has said he opened the bedroom door. Lance Corporal Stephen Tatum claimed that he followed Wuterich into the family bedroom, but said poor visibility had obscured the vision his vision of the women and children in the room who were killed by the Marines. Poor visibility. Are you fucking kidding me? The uncovered statements, however, show Tatum admitting to different events. I saw that children were in the room kneeling down. I don't remember the exact number, but only that it was a lot. I am trained to shoot 2 shots to the chest and 2 shots to the head, and I followed my training, he told the NCIS in 2006. Tatum, quote, was able to positively identify the people in the room as women and children before shooting them, the service was told a month later. The NCIS was told a month later. A week after that, he said, this is where I saw the kid I shot. Knowing it was a kid, I still shot him. Defense lawyers for Tatum said his later statements were obtained under duress and charges against him were dropped in March 2008. Maloney said the totality of evidence pointed to Mendoza and Tatum being the 2 Marines who killed Eunice's family. The forensic expert believes the former entered the bedroom first while the latter fired across the head of the bed. Mendoza had previously admitted to shooting Eunice's father, but said he was following orders. Tatum, through his lawyer, said he wants to put the massacre behind him. Oh, I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. The U.S. Marine Corps said it would not reopen the investigation. You ain't gonna vote your way out of shit, right? We're still gonna be going to these fucked up wars, and then these idiots that are just picked off the street and put in uniform and given weapons, they're gonna send them over there and tell them to kill everything you see, and they're gonna do it. And what are you gonna do? You're gonna sit there? You're just going to stay in there and just like, oh, we could, maybe the Democrats this year could do, or maybe the Republicans will change. No, none of that shit. Maybe if we had a third party, they could, no, they'll be bought out too. I don't care how many fucking parties you have under this current system. They're all going to be bought out by Israel or some evil regime. The only way we're going to get shit done is by getting out in the fucking streets and shutting everything down. And I don't mean just Starbucks or your neighborhood Amazon center. I mean shutting the whole fucking thing down. Ports, railways, airports, trucks, all that shit. That they only know that the only thing people know is if you hit them in their pocketbooks. And that's the only thing you can do. Yeah, when the money stops spending, things might start to change. Shut that shit down. PKK withdraws from strategic Iraqi region in step toward peace with Turkey. And I'm with you, Wesley. I don't like this Turkiye. I know that's like, look, if you want to do that locally, that's fine. But out here, it's Turkey. With Turkey, with stuffing and deep fried turkey too. Ooh, but be careful. The Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, announced yesterday its withdrawal from the strategic ZAP region, in the Kurdistan region of Iraq as part of its ongoing effort to disarm and reach a peace agreement with Turkey. As of the evening of November 16th, our forces in the ZAP region have been withdrawn, the group said in a statement, describing the move as a significant practical contribution to the peace process. We believe this new step will serve the resolution of the Kurdish issue and will help with peace and democratization of Turkey, the statement added. The PKK began a campaign of armed struggle against the Turkish state in the 1980s, causing Ankara, the Turkish capital, to view the group as a terrorist organization. Roughly 50,000 people have been killed over the course of the conflict. The Kurdish group, which has its headquarters in the Kandil Mountains in northern Iraq, formally renounced armed struggle against Turkey. Earlier this year, the group vowed to disarm at the urging of its aging founder, Abdullah Öcalan, and has been imprisoned by Turkey since 1979. Last month, the group withdrew all its forces from Turkish territory in a bid to reduce tensions. The ZAP region from which Monday's withdrawal took place is located in a remote area of northern Iraqi Kurdistan near the border with Turkey. It was the site of a major Turkish military incursion in 2008. The PKK is seeking to continue the struggle for Kurdish rights, but now as a political party within Turkey's parliamentary system. A parliamentary commission was established by Ankara in August to oversee the process of integrating the PKK and its former fighters into Turkish society and politics. Turkey has used the presence of the PKK as a pretext to occupy parts of northern Iraq, establishing military bases in strategic areas without the agreement of Iraqi authorities in Baghdad. The Turkish military has carried out several military campaigns targeting the PKK in Iraq in recent years, including the 2-year Operation Clawlock, which ended in April last year. Turkey has also invaded and occupied strategic areas in northern Syria on its southern border. Ankara claims it needs a buffer zone to protect its territory from the Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, an offshoot of the PKK that partners with U.S. forces to occupy northeast Syria, including the country's major oil fields. Bangladesh does not play. I love deep fried turkey. Just don't drop a hard, rock, solid frozen turkey. Yeah, that's right. If you're going to deep fry turkey, make sure that thing's thawed inside and out, because you got an ice ball in the middle of that thing. You got a ticking time bomb, baby. So ousted Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been sentenced to death for crimes against humanity. See, they don't play. And the way they kill people in Bangladesh, they hang them. They hang them until they are dead. I think that's what it said. Sorry about that. Bangladesh's deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been sentenced to death in absentia by a court in Dhaka for crimes against humanity over a deadly crackdown on a student-led uprising last year. Yeah, a volcano. Yeah, it's like a nuke, dude. That's why people do that out on their driveways. They don't do it inside, because that shit will literally explode. A 3-judge bench of the country's International Crimes Tribunal convicted Hasina of crimes including incitement, orders to kill, and inaction to prevent atrocities as she oversaw a crackdown on anti-government protesters last year. Reading the verdict to the court, Justice Ghulam Mortuza Mazumder said the accused prime minister committed crimes against humanity by her order to use drones, helicopters, and lethal weapons against civilians. Hasina had pleaded not guilty to the charges and alleged the tribunal was a politically motivated charade. The UN Human Rights Office described the sentencing as an important moment for victims, but said Hasina should not have been sentenced to death. We have been calling for perpetrators, including individuals in positions of command and leadership, to be held accountable in accordance with international standards, said a U.S. spokesperson, Ravina Shamdasani, adding, "We regret the imposition of the death penalty, which we oppose in all circumstances." Yeah, I know, right? I was just thinking that. Woo! I'm telling you, man, if you're going to invest your money in a company, invest your money in a company that makes guillotines. I'm just saying. The months-long tribunal tried and sentenced Hasina in absentia since she fled the country in August last year. Hasina has been living in exile and under protection in neighboring India, those cucks. And the Indian government has ignored requests for her extradition to face trial. Fucking pussies. Family members of killed protesters broke down in tears in the courtroom as judges handed death sentences to Hasina and the former Home Minister Asaduzaman Khan, her co-accused in the trial. Asaduzaman? Not going to work here anymore. Hasina's absence from the defendant's box was stark. In a statement released after the ruling, Hasina said she had not been given a fair chance to defend herself in court and claimed she had only acted in good faith to bring disorder under control. Well, why didn't you come back and go to trial, baby? You know, you could have came back. You could have defended yourself. No. Because they knew if the court didn't kill him, the people would. She said the verdict had been made, mortician as a trade. Yeah, it's going to be highly lucrative, I'm pretty sure. With all these elites having their heads separated from their necks. She said the verdict had been made by a rigged tribunal established and presided over by an unelected government with no democratic mandate. Dhaka was on edge in the run-up to the decision, with security tightened around across the capital and police, army, and paramilitaries cordoning off the tribunal area. In the days before the verdict, there was a sharp rise in political violence, including dozens of crude bombs set off across the city. Dhaka police issued a shoot-on-sight order for anyone caught launching explosives or setting fire to vehicles. Yikes. Yesterday morning, a crude bomb was hurled onto a road close to the court, setting off panic and prompting police to blockade the roads. The protest that toppled Hasina began as a student movement and escalated into a nationwide uprising, now referred to as the July Revolution, against Hasina's authoritarian rule. Let's see if that was a psyops. Is there a U.S. puppet in her place? Her 15 years in power were seen as a reign of terror by many in Bangladesh, marred by allegations of corruption, torture, and enforced disappearances, which were documented by human rights organizations and the UN. In response to the unrest, Hasina oversaw a ruthless state-led crackdown with documented use of live ammunition against civilians by police and security forces. I need to get those motherfuckers, too, that shot those people. The UN Human Rights Office estimates up to 1,400 people were killed during the uprising, the worst political violence in Bangladesh since the 1971 Independence War. The prosecution of Hasina has been a core promise made by the interim government led by the Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, who was appointed to lead the country by protest leaders last year. The government appointed Muhammad Tajul Islam as chief prosecutor to build a case that would be heard by the International Crimes Tribunal in Dhaka. Hasina was tried alongside her former police chief, Chowdhury Abdullah al-Mamun. Mamun had pleaded guilty and turned state witness against Hasina in July. Rat. In the verdict, judges said the crimes committed by Mamun carried capital punishment, but that he would be shown leniency for being a snitch. In a push for transparency, much of the tribunal proceedings were broadcast live. That's what we need. Put all our leaders on trial live on ExtraBulla. We'll stream it. One of the key incidents highlighted by prosecutors was the killing of Abu Saeed, a university student who died after police fired at close range and whose killing, captured on camera, became a rallying cry for the uprising. The prosecution described Hasina as the mastermind, conductor, and superior commander of the July and August atrocities. The case cited audio recordings of calls made by Hasina to directly link instructions from the Prime Minister's office to the deadly street operations. The use of the International Crimes Tribunal to try Hasina has been met with some criticism by human rights groups. The court had been established by Hasina herself, and her opponents have accused her of using it to pursue politically motivated cases while she was in power. Human Rights Watch said that despite some changes, it still fell short of fair trial standards and safeguards while retaining the right to pass down the death penalty. The Yunus government had rejected the criticism, saying the tribunal functioned transparently, allowing observers and publishing regular documentation. They did the shit live. What else do you want? For families of those killed in the uprising, the verdict against Hasina brought some relief and catharsis. Ghulam Rahman lost his son Ghulam Nafis after he was shot on August 4th at the height of the unrest. Rahman said the death sentence for Hasina was the only acceptable acceptable verdict for what was done to my child. We buried a boy, not an enemy of the state. Nothing will bring him back, but the truth has to be said in court. Nafis's last known photograph of him lying in a three-wheeled pedal rickshaw as the puller tried to get him to the hospital has circulated widely online and been stenciled as graffiti across Dhaka. We, the families of martyrs in the uprising, want to see her hanged as an example to future rulers, Rahman said. Let no government think it can turn its guns on children and walk away. That's a hell of a quote right there. Let no government think it can turn its guns on children and walk away. Bangladesh's first election since the fall of Hasina is due to take place in early February next year. Her Awami League party has been banned from taking part. Though most of its leaders are in jail or in hiding abroad, the party has vowed to cause mass unrest in response, because sure, Hasina's son Sajib Wazed told Reuters that though his mother would remain safe in Delhi after the verdict, Hasina would not sit back quietly. She's upset, angry, outraged, he said, and we are all determined to fight back by whatever means necessary. Yeah, I can understand the kid defending his, trying to protect his mom, but his mom's a piece of shit. 1,400 people killed. Live rounds shot at protesters. Not bullets, not pepper balls, bullets. Bullets. Oh no. I guess we'll have to skip that one. Why is that not working? For some reason, the cradle that I get some of my news from has been down. So we'll come back to that in a second. Wait a minute, let me try one more thing. There we go. Weird. Yeah. I saw on some sites that the internet is down in a lot of places in the world. So solar flares, they're here. Solar flares. Kremlin slams U.S. bill to sanction countries doing business with Russia. So Russia has expressed strong opposition to a U.S. congressional bill that would sanction countries maintaining economic ties with Moscow, with Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov saying yesterday that its approval would be viewed extremely negatively. Peskov said Russia is examining the proposal's progress and will assess its specific provisions once they are finalized. He noted that Trump publicly backed the bill when asked by reporters, confirming that Trump said yes when questioned about his support. According to Peskov, the initiative targets countries cooperating with Russia and would impose broad penalties, as if they aren't already being punished with these tariffs. And that's friends of the United States too. In a press gaggle on November 16th, Trump said Republicans are putting forward legislation that would very severely sanction any country doing business with Russia. He said he supported the effort and indicated lawmakers were already working on the proposal. Trump added that he has suggested expanding the bill to include Iran. They may add Iran to that, and as you know, I suggested it, because I did that. When I didn't have Bill's cock in my mouth, I said, nom, 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 and then I said, let's add Iran to it. The comments came during an informal exchange with journalists in Florida where Trump took questions on foreign policy and congressional initiatives. The bill itself was introduced in early April by a bipartisan group of senators, of course. But if you hear bipartisan, that's the same thing as fuckery. It calls for sweeping secondary sanctions on Russia's trade partners and includes a proposal for 500% import duties on U.S. goods coming from countries that purchase Russian oil, gas, uranium, and other commodities. Doesn't the United States don't they purchase Russian oil too? I thought they did. Maybe not. Peskov said Moscow is closely watching how the bill advances, stressing that Russia considers the measure harmful and will respond once the full details are known. Amid ongoing tensions in U.S.-Russia relations, Moscow has expressed interest in creating the conditions for a meeting between Putin and Trump, with Peskov saying the summit can only take place after what he described as thorough, meticulous preparation. Peskov told reporters that Moscow hopes the required conditions will be in place sooner rather than later. but added that it remains difficult to predict when that will happen. He said the meeting will proceed once preparations are complete and the circumstances are right. His comments followed remarks by Finnish President Alexander Stubb, who claimed Moscow had missed an opportunity for a Putin-Trump encounter in Budapest. You know, in Finland, they finish what they start. The Budapest meeting Stubb referenced was the same summit Trump canceled in October, saying it would be a waste of time after Moscow rejected his proposal for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine. So basically, Trump didn't get his way, so he canceled the meeting, the thing with the Gloiven. Coffee's so good. What else can I depress you with? Oh, I got plenty. No easy options. Europe attempts to fill Ukraine's massive budget gap. ICE is running black site detention centers, separating families, deporting people into war zones. Yeah, the ICE DF. Yeah, ethnic cleansing. Yeah. Yeah, well, they definitely, at the very least, they've taken a page out of the IDF playbook. ICE has, for sure. I mean, look at New York cops. They're trained by the IDF too. And that's why New York cops suck. Ukraine will need over $150 billion from its Western backers in 26 and 27. The president of the European Commission admitted there were no easy options. In a letter to the leaders of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen argued that it was essential for the bloc to plug Ukraine's $157 billion budget gap over the next 2 years. It will now be key to rapidly reach a clear commitment on how to ensure that the necessary funding for Ukraine will be agreed at the next European Council meeting in December. That's a hard voice. Clearly, there are no easy options, von der Leyen continued. Europe cannot afford paralysis either by hesitation or by the search for perfect or simple solutions which do not exist. The letter said, which is funny because it was a letter, but you could still hear her voice. The letter sent by von der Leyen to 27 European countries on Monday was first reported by Euronews. Von der Leyen's proposal to fill the budget gap calls for EU states to enter into bilateral agreements with Kiev to provide over $100 billion to Ukraine over the next 2 years. Additionally, she wants the bloc to take on debt to finance Kiev and to use seized Russian assets held in member states. Most of the frozen Russian funds are held in Belgium. Brussels has resisted using the assets, believing Moscow will sue to recover the funds. They absolutely will. Hungarian President Viktor Orban rejected von der Leyen's call for sending more support to Ukraine. I received a letter today from President von der Leyen. She writes that Ukraine's financial gap is significant and asks member states to send more money, he wrote on the tweeters. It's astonishing. At a time when it has become clear that a war mafia is siphoning off European taxpayers' money, instead of demanding real oversight or overspending payments, the commission president suggests we send even more, the Hungarian leader said. This whole matter is a bit like trying to help an alcoholic by sending them another crate of vodka. Hungary has not lost its common sense. Yeah, I love some Hungary, man. Viktor Orban, yeah, he is always just putting it out there too. President Zelensky said the war will cost Ukraine $120 billion in 2026, and Ukraine can only provide half because the other half is going to cocaine for Ukrainian Scarface. Oh, man, you do. Meanwhile, in the UK, this is the Labour Party. The Labour, which is supposed to be the equivalent of the Democrats here in the United States. What's up, Max? Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well, my friend. So, UK Labour to let authorities take jewelry from asylum seekers as part of sweeping new immigration crackdown. Emphasis on crack. A new asylum policy announced Monday by the UK Labour Party will allow authorities to confiscate the jewelry and other belongings of asylum seekers in order to pay for their claims to be processed. The policy, which some critics say was reminiscent of the Nazi era, was just one part of the Labour Party's total overhaul of the nation's asylum system, which it says must be made much more restrictive in order to fend off rising support for the far right. In a policy paper released Monday, the government announced that it would seek to make the status of many refugees temporary and give the government new powers to deport refugees if it determines it to be safe. Excuse me. It also revoked policies requiring the government to provide housing and legal support to those fleeing persecution, while extending the amount of time they need to wait for permanent residency to 20 years, up from just 5 years for those who arrive illegally. The UK, same thing. The UK government also said it will attempt to change the way judges interpret human rights law to more seamlessly carry out deportations, including stopping immigrants from using their rights to family life under the European Convention on Human Rights, the ECHR, to avoid deportation. In an article for The Guardian published Sunday, UK Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood called the reforms the most significant and comprehensive changes to our asylum system in a generation. She said they were necessary because the increase in migration to the UK has stirred up dark forces in the country that are seeking to turn that anger into hate. Nigel Farage, the leader of the far-right Reform UK party, is leading national polls on the back of a viciously anti-immigrant campaign that has included calls to abolish the UK's main pathway for immigrants to become permanent residents, known as Leave to Remain. Meanwhile, in September, over 100,000 people gathered in London for an anti-immigration rally led by Tommy Robinson, a notorious far-right figure who founded the anti-Muslim English Defence League. That the event saw at least 26 police officers injured by protesters. Last summer, riots swept the UK after false claims spread by Robinson, Farage, and other far-right figures that the perpetrator of the fatal stabbing of 2 young girls and their caretaker had been a Muslim asylum seeker. A hotel housing asylum seekers was set on fire, mosques were vandalized and destroyed, and several immigrants and other racial minorities were brutally beaten. See, this is what happens when you tell lies and people follow you and you keep lying and lying. These people believe your lies, and then they actually start doing shit on your behalf. Mahmood said that if changes are not made to the asylum system, we risk losing popular consent for having an asylum system at all. But as critics were quick to point out, the far right merely took Labor's crackdown as a sign that it's winning the war for hearts and minds. Labor. Robinson gloated to his followers that the Overton window has been obliterated. Well done, patriots, while Farage chortled that Mahmood sounds like a reform supporter. Many members of the Labour coalition expressed outrage at their ostensibly liberal party's bending to the far right. The government should be ashamed that its migration policies are being cheered on by Tommy Robinson and Reform, said Nadia Whittam, the Labour MP for Nottingham East. Instead of standing up to anti-migrant hate, this is laying the foundation for the far right. Because they're the same people. Labor's like the Democrats, all right? They play ball with the Republicans. They play ball with the Tories. Even though they all yell at each other in Parliament, which is all fun to hear. Oh, that's bullshit. All that is fucking bullshit. In a speech to Parliament, or to Parliament, in a speech in Parliament, she chided the Home Secretary's policy overhaul, calling it dystopian. It's shameful that a Labour government is ripping up the rights and protections of people who have endured unimaginable trauma, she said. Is this how we'd want to be treated if we were fleeing for our lives? Of course not. Exactly. That is UK's foreign policy, along with the United States foreign policy, that makes immigration as massive as it is. Maybe if you stop fucking with their countries, they might actually stay there. Who knows? The UK has signed treaties, including the ECHR, obligating it to process the claims of those who claim asylum because they face persecution in their home countries based on race, religion, nationality, group membership, or political opinion. According to data from the Home Office, over 111,000 people claimed asylum in the year from June 2024 to 2025, more than double the number who did in 2019. Sorry. The spike came as the number of people displaced worldwide reached an all-time high of over 123.2 million at the end of last year, according to the Norwegian Refugee Council, with desperate people seeking safety from escalating conflicts in Sudan, Ukraine, Myanmar, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and across the Middle East. In her op-ed, Mahmoud lamented that the burden borne by taxpayers has been unfair. However, as progressive commentator Owen Jones pointed out, the UK takes in far fewer asylum seekers than its peers. Last year, Germany took over twice as many asylum seekers as the UK. France, Italy, and Spain took 1.5 times as many. Per capita, we take fewer than most EU countries. Poor countries such as Greece take proportionately more than we do. The Labour government, led by yours truly, not me, Keir Starmer, although I kind of look like him sometimes, already boasts that it has deported more than 50,000 people in the UK illegally since it came to power in 2024. But it has predictably done little to satiate the far right, which has also continued to gain momentum in polls despite the crackdown. Under the new rules, it's expected that the government will be able to fast-track many more deportations, particularly of families with children. The jewelry rule, meanwhile, has become a protest symbol of how the Labour Party has shifted away from its promises of economic egalitarianism toward austerity and punishment of the most vulnerable. Labour won't redistribute wealth from billionaires, said former party leader Jeremy Corbyn, who is now an independent EMP, but they will seize belongings from those fleeing war and persecution. Exactly right, Jeremy. They won't take that money from billionaires because they're owned by those billionaires. That's how that works. We go to Africa now as gunmen kidnap 25 girls, kill staff member in Nigeria's school raid. Always the children. Why? Gunmen from a criminal gang kidnapped 25 girls and killed a staff member in an early morning raid on a northwestern Nigerian girls' secondary school yesterday, according to police. The latest attack comes more than a decade after nearly 300 girls were abducted from Chibok in the rest of northeastern region and sparked international outcry. Since then, there's been a string of other abductions involving school children. Police yesterday said the gang, armed with sophisticated weapons, shooting sporadically, stormed the government girls' comprehensive secondary school in Kebbi State at about 0300 Greenwich Mean Time. Police were deployed, but unfortunately, the suspected bandits had already scaled through the fence of the school and abducted 25 students from their hostel to unknown destination, police said in a statement. The school deputy head was shot dead while a security guard was injured during the attack, according to a report prepared by the UN. The military, police tactical units, and local vigilantes have been deployed in the area, and they are currently combing the bandits' routes in nearby forest in a bid to rescue the abducted students and arrest the gangs, police said. Nigeria's northwest has for years been seeing a rise in heavily armed criminal gangs known as bandits who steal cattle, raid villages, kidnap and kill residents, and loot and burn homes. And the Sudan army blocks relief convoys while humanitarian aid piles up. This is from the Arab Weekly. Aid is piling up in Chad as the Sudanese army blocks its entry and bombs relief convoys, exacerbating what the UN describes as the country's worst humanitarian crisis ever. More than half of Sudan's population, some 25 million people, is suffering from acute food insecurity. They're starving, according to the latest UN reports, with Darfur and Kordofan officially declared to be in the throes of famine. Thousands of tons of humanitarian aid are held at the Chadian border, awaiting approval from the Sudanese army and its affiliated government in Port Sudan, while relief convoys are repeatedly targeted by airstrikes, preventing them from reaching those in need. At the Adre border crossing in eastern Chad, where the impoverished country is hosting more than 800,000 Sudanese refugees, shipments of food and medicine are accumulating in temporary warehouses run by the UN and other international organizations. World Food Program reports indicate that approximately 100,000 tons of aid supplies are ready for transit, but Sudanese authorities are refusing to grant full permits, citing security reasons. Security concerns, sorry. Is that like national security? Take a drink. Related to the Rapid Support Forces control of Darfur, the RSF. The army closed the main Adre crossing months ago, forcing organizations to rely on more dangerous alternative routes, such as the heavily congested Teen crossing. This situation did not arise in a vacuum. Since the outbreak of conflict in April 2023, the UN has recorded more than 80 attacks on humanitarian convoys, most of them airstrikes attributed by international reports to the Sudanese Air Force. The most recent incident occurred just days ago on November 14th when an aid convoy carrying food and medical supplies was targeted by a strike, which killed 5 aid workers and destroyed a significant portion of the aid and trucks. On June 3rd, an airstrike had destroyed a joint UNICEF WFP convoy near the Tyne crossing, killing 5 aid workers and burning dozens of trucks. So dry. The UN strongly condemned the attack, stating that the convoy's coordinates had been shared in advance with all parties and described it as a flagrant violation of international humanitarian law, you think? In Port Sudan, where the military-backed government denies the existence of famine, international reports are dismissed as political exaggerations. The representative of the de facto government in Sudan insisted before the UN Security Council last August that there are no deaths from starvation in the displacement camps, blaming the RSF for the crisis. Edem Wasornu, the Director of Operations and Advocacy for the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, that's OCHA, responded by saying that the famine in Sudan is man-made and can be stopped immediately if the parties allow unhindered access for aid. The numbers speak for themselves. 375,000 people are now in a state of food insecurity, and more than 500,000 children are at risk of death from malnutrition since the beginning of the year. Doctors Without Borders documented cases of children in the Zamzam camp in Darfur eating grass and leaves to survive, while aid stockpiled in Chad is enough to save millions if it were allowed to pass through. The UN Independent International Commission of Inquiry, in its September 2025 report, documented a pattern of indiscriminate bombing targeting hospitals, markets, and aid convoys, noting cannot talk today, noting that airstrikes constitute the largest share of violations in civilian areas. The commission confirmed that bureaucratic restrictions imposed by the military prevent 20% of the required aid from reaching its destination. For its part, Chad faces an enormous burden. Despite its own poverty, it hosts more than 800,000 refugees and suffers the consequences of the Sudanese conflict, which has spilled over into its territory. The UNHCR reports that international funding for the response in Chad has decreased by 64% this year, leading to the closure of relief kitchens and exacerbating malnutrition among refugees. The 2025 Sudan Humanitarian Response Plan has received only 28% of the required funding, estimated at $4.2 billion. Denise Brown, the UN resident coordinator in Sudan, warned that civilians are trapped between the front lines, deprived of food and medicine, and face widespread famine if corridors are not open immediately. Given the current dire reality, the question remains, when will the war machine stop using starvation as a weapon? This situation, say analysts, compels the international community to act by imposing strict sanctions on belligerents, obstructing aid, and launching independent investigations into attacks on aid convoys, and supporting a comprehensive ceasefire. Sudan is not just a humanitarian crisis. It is a test of the world's conscience, say humanitarian groups. So it's not just Gaza. It's also Sudan. Sometimes some of us tend to forget that, and we have to be reminded, yes, that this kind of thing has been happening all over the world, right? I know what's the common denominator. It's always children who suffer the most. Meanwhile, South Korea proposes talks with North Korea on military demarcation line. Interesting. I thought that was graffiti for something like. How'd they get away with that? South Korea has proposed talks with North Korea to avoid border clashes, the first such offer in 7 years, as Seoul seeks to ease military tensions with its nuclear-armed neighbor. Citing recent incursions by North Korean troops, Kim Hong-chol, Deputy Minister for National Defense Policy, told a news briefing on Monday that military-to-military channels can help avert an escalation. To prevent accidental clashes and ease military tensions, our military officially proposes that the two sides hold inter-Korean military talks to discuss the establishment of a clear reference line for the MDL, he said, referring to the military demarcation line on their border. Seoul and Pyongyang technically remain at war because the 1953 Korean Armistice Agreement, which halted the conflict between them, was never followed by a peace treaty. The MDL lies inside the demilitarized zone, a buffer zone that runs for 250 kilometers, about 160 miles, across the Korean peninsula with a width of 4 kilometers, about 2.5 miles. An estimated 2 million mines are peppered inside and along the border, which is also guarded by combat troops, barbed wire fences, and tank traps. And this guy, he's there too. Hi, everybody. I'm your new overlord. Okay. Sorry. Didn't mean to scare you with a robot there. Finally, in our news block, Japan's tourism stocks plunge amid spat with China. Japanese shares linked to the tourism industry have nosedived following China's warning to its citizens against traveling to Japan. Relations between Tokyo and Beijing have plummeted since Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi suggested earlier this month that Japan's military could intervene to stop China from taking control of Taiwan. Womp womp. What, are you going to throw CD and DVD players at him? In a sharp escalation of the dispute on Friday, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs advised citizens to avoid travel to the East Asian country, claiming that Takaichi's comments had increased risks to their personal safety and lives. The issue continued to reverberate as Japan's stock market reopened on Monday after the weekend break, with shares of airlines and retail outlets taking sharp falls. Takaichi, bless you. I don't really care. Department store group Esetan Mitsukoshi fell more than 11% in afternoon trading, while its rival Takashimaya tumbled about 5%. Japanese airlines fell about 4%, while Uniqlo owner Fast Retailing dipped about 5%. Cosmetics company Shiseido plunged about 9.5%. China is Japan's biggest source of foreign tourists, according to accounting for almost 1/4 of the 31.65 million arrivals in the first 9 months of this year, according to Japan National Tourism Organization. Ryota Abe, an economist at Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation, said Japan's gross domestic product, their GDP, could shrink by about 0.5% in the event of a total collapse in Chinese arrivals, and about 0.1 to 0.2% if arrivals decrease by about 1/3. Even if the number of visitors decreases 30% because of the heightened tensions, the negative impact will be around 0.1 to 0.2%, Abe told Al Jazeera. Japan's economy shrank by 0.4% in the 3 months to September. Official data released on Monday showed the first contraction in 6 quarters. Japan's chief cabinet secretary Yoshihide Suga told a regular news briefing on Monday that Beijing's travel warning was inconsistent with mutually beneficial ties and that Tokyo had requested appropriate steps from the Chinese side. Japan's top official for Asia-Pacific affairs, Masaaki Kanai, departed for China on Monday for talks aimed at lowering tensions between the sides, Japanese media reported. Masaaki Kanai will meet with his Chinese counterpart, Liu Jinsong, in Beijing, where he is expected to clarify that Tokyo has made no change to its security policy, despite Takaichi's comments on Taiwan, the report said. Japan has long viewed China's threats to take control of Taiwan with concern due to the self-ruled island's close proximity to Japanese territory and its location in waters that carry large volumes of trade. China considers Taiwan part of its territory and has pledged to reunify the island with the Chinese mainland by force if necessary. So they're going to get a big rope and tie it around to Taiwan and pull it to the mainland, and then we're going to be reunited because it feels so good. Taiwan is not officially recognized by most countries, but has many characteristics of a de facto independent state, including its own military and passport and a democratically elected president and legislator. Yes. So, though Japan is like, yeah, we'll intervene. Womp womp. Meanwhile, their economy, teats up. Lord of mercy. I got the vapors. So if you believe Bibi over in Israel, then you know that he always tells the truth, right? And so, of course, he's calling the illegal Israeli settlers law-abiding citizens. Yeah, right.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things they are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has tried to distance his government from the surging settler violence sweeping the occupied West Bank, insisting the attacks do not represent the large community of settlers who are law-abiding and loyal to the state, the Jerusalem Post reported. He told ministers the escalating assaults were caused by a minority, even as documented attacks reach unprecedented levels. The UN's humanitarian office recorded more than 260 settler assaults in October alone, the highest monthly figure since it began tracking the pattern in 2006. Palestinians say the violence is part of a broader strategy to drive them from their land, while Israel accelerates efforts to entrench its control. Israel continues to push towards formal annexation of the occupied territory, a move that violates international law and further entrenches the system of apartheid and dispossession Palestinians face daily. So he also ordered his own probe into October 7th shuts down calls for a state inquiry. What? The Israeli government announced yesterday a decision to establish its own investigation into the failures leading to Operation Al-Aqsa flood. Excuse me. Damn. Woo! The move has been slammed by the Israeli opposition, which has long demanded a traditional state commission of inquiry into the October 7th operation. A government statement on the decision framed the probe as independent, of course that's in air quotes, but clarified that the commission's mandate will be determined by ministers of the Israeli cabinet. Tel Aviv also said it would do its utmost to ensure the commission's makeup received as broad public approval as possible. It added that the commission will have full investigative authority, the scope of which has not been publicly disclosed. BB will establish a special ministerial panel to define the commission's mandate, including the topics and timeframes to be investigated. The panel will have 45 days to submit its recommendations to the state. The government is doing everything it can to run away from the truth and evade responsibility. There is broad public consensus in favor of a state commission of inquiry. This is what the country needs. This is what the public demands, and this is what will happen. Israeli opposition leader of the Yesh Atid party, Yair Lapid, said on Sunday in response to the government decision. Their refusal to investigate their failures endangers the security of the state and constitutes an insult and an evasion of responsibility towards the soldiers and families who have sacrificed so much since October 7th, Lapid added. Sacrifice. A state commission is the highest level of investigation in the Israeli legal system and is customarily carried out independently as opposed to government-appointed probes. Previously, Bibi's ruling coalition had proposed an alternative investigative committee whose members would be appointed by both the opposition and the coalition, yet the idea was shut down by the opposition. The premier and his government cite a lack of public trust in Israel's high court, which they say should not be granted the authority to choose the members of the investigating committee. At the start of the year, the coalition shot down an opposition bill to establish a state commission. The only way to ensure public trust in the commission's work is through broad agreement on its composition, Netanyahu said last week, calling for the establishment of a bipartisan commission similar to the U.S. Congress's commission after September 11th. Yeah, that went smashingly. Several reports have emerged since the war in Gaza began, revealing that Israeli authorities ignored multiple warnings about Operation Al-Aqsa flood. Significant amounts of evidence have also emerged on Israel's implementation of the Hannibal Directive, a measure taken to prevent the capture of Israelis. You know how they do that? Let's kill our own. Let's kill our own. Israeli helicopters and tanks indiscriminately opened fire at the settlements that were stormed by Hamas fighters that Saturday, causing mass destruction and Israeli casualties, testimonies have confirmed. So Bibi's like, we don't need the state. The state, no. Let's do it ourselves, baby. Just like the cops investigating themselves. Yeah, it did never. It never happens like that. What happened? Shanu? Okay. So here in Canada, well, we're pretty close, but just a little ways north of us here. Calls for answers grow over Canada's interrogation of Israel critic. Canadian human rights activists are demanding answers from their government after a former UN special rapporteur who investigated Israeli abuses against Palestinians was interrogated at the Canadian border on national security grounds. Take a drink, everybody. National security. Woo! That was no drink for that. National security. National security means anything these days. Richard Falk, 95 years old, was stopped at Toronto Pearson International Airport on Thursday and questioned for several hours. He said a security official told him that Canada had concerns that he and his wife, fellow legal scholar Halal Elver, posed a danger to the national security of Canada. He's 95 years old. The treatment of the couple has sparked anger and calls for an explanation from Ottawa. We need answers, and from the highest levels of government, said Corey Balsam, national coordinator at Independent Jewish Voices Canada, a group that supports Palestinian rights. Despite the outcry, Canadian authorities have not publicly addressed the incident. I'm sure they haven't. But the Office of Minister of Public Safety, Gary Anandasangari, who oversees the Canada Border Services Agency, has acknowledged the case in a statement to Al Jazeera, saying he is seeking more information about what happened. National security safeguards are an integral part of our immigration and border management framework, and while we cannot comment on specific cases, we are committed to ensuring that our border screening processes respect due process and international obligations. Simon Lafortune, a spokesperson for that guy, told Al Jazeera in an email. To that end, Minister, that guy has asked that the CBSA to provide more specific details on how this particular incident occurred. We don't know anything. Falk told Al Jazeera on Saturday that he and Elver were asked about their work on Israel, Gaza, and genocide, as well as about their participation in an event in Ottawa looking into Canada's role in Israel's war on Gaza, which a UN inquiry and numerous rights groups have described as genocide. After more than 4 hours of questioning the pair, both U.S. citizens were allowed to enter Canada and take part in the Palestine Tribunal on Canadian responsibility. Alex Petersen, Senior Director of Strategy and Parliamentary Affairs at the advocacy group Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East, called the government's treatment of the couple patently ridiculous. I think it just lays bare for everyone the reality that they wanted to hamper the tribunal's work and try to keep Canadian complicity in Israel's genocide in the shadows, Petersen told Al Jazeera yesterday. He added that the Canadian government has been trying to avoid questions of its complicity in arming the genocide, and that's reason enough to do this. Since Israel's war on Gaza began in October 2023, Canadian human rights advocates have been calling on the government to apply pressure on Israel, a long-standing ally, to end its attacks on the Palestinian enclave. Those calls for concrete action from Canada have grown as Israel's military assault and restrictions on aid have killed tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, and pushed Gaza into a humanitarian crisis. Last year, the Canadian government announced it was suspending some weapons export permits to Israel amid the atrocities in the territory. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who took office in March, also voiced opposition to Israel's blockade on aid to Gaza and a surge in Israeli military and settler violence in the occupied West Bank. Meanwhile, along with several allies, Carney's government recognized an independent Palestinian state in September, but researchers and human rights advocates said loopholes in Canada's arms export system have allowed Canadian-made weapons to continue to reach Israel, often via the United States. They have also urged Canada to do more to stem continued Israeli attacks against Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, and to support efforts to hold Israel accountable for serious abuses, including at the International Criminal Court, the ICC. In his interview with Al Jazeera on Saturday, Falk, who served as UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in the occupied Palestinian territory from 2008 to 2014, said he believed his interrogation was part of a wider push to silence those who speak the truth about what's happening in Gaza. It suggests a climate of governmental insecurity, I think, to try to clamp down on dissident voices, he said. Al Jazeera has contracted multiple relevant Canadian government agencies to ask whether Ottawa views the 95-year-old as a threat to national security, and if so, why? The CBSA spokesperson said in an email on Monday that the agency could not comment on specific cases, of course, but stressed that secondary inspections are part of the cross-border process. For 95-year-old, guy's 95 years old, Jesus Christ. It's important to note that travelers referred to secondary inspection are not being detained, spokesperson Rebecca Purdy said. Foreign nationals seeking entry into Canada can be subjected to a secondary inspection by an officer to determine admissibility to Canada. In some instances, the inspection may take longer due to information being gathered through questioning. Global Affairs Canada, the Canadian Foreign Ministry, has not yet responded to a request for comment. Balsam of Independent Jewish Voices Canada said treating someone like Falk as a security threat sends a message that actually none of us are safe from the suppression of dissent and crack down on voices that are critical of the Israeli regime. We all deserve an answer and an explanation from the government as to this incident, which casts a chill for all Canadians that are speaking out about human rights in general and Palestine in particular. 95 years old. Stopping him, asking him all his questions. Yeah, it's a shakedown, basically. It's trying to foment fear. Don't be talking about our friends who control us. I guess people are still here. Meanwhile, this jerk Pompeo to advise Ukraine weapons company accused of corruption. He showed him how to be more corrupt. Former CI Director and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is now advising a heavily scrutinized Ukrainian defense firm called Firepoint, which will allow him to benefit directly from the Western military aid to Ukraine, as he frequently advocated for since the start of the war in 2022. Pompeo's new role on Firepoint's advisory board would essentially place him on both sides of any future deals. As a U.S. government official under the first Trump administration and former U.S. congressman, his frequent wartime calls for further military aid to Ukraine bear considerable influence in Washington, priming Firepoint to reap the benefits as it leads the Ukrainian market for long-range drones. Quickly rising to prominence in wartime, Firepoint is currently under scrutiny for its alleged price gouging practices and for its ties to Timur Mindich, a Zelensky associate being investigated for corruption charges. Critics also charge that the company has an unfair monopoly over the drone market, earning about $1 billion this year. Firepoint is now constructing a factory in Denmark. Pompeo's new role continues a pattern of reported wartime conflicts of interest. I guess that's responsible statecraft. This outfit reported last summer that Pompeo stood to benefit from the Trump peace plan he proposed in the Wall Street Journal, which called for Ukraine to join the EU and for a $500 billion Lend-Lease program for Ukraine to buy U.S. weapons. As a director at prominent Ukrainian telecom company Kyivstar, Pompeo would have stood to gain from the economic benefits Kyivstar realized through Ukraine's EU ascension had his peace plan been realized. Mike Pompeo, that man smells money like a, there he is. Look at him. Look at that sweet, sweet guy. He smells money like a fart in a car. You know what I'm saying? Some good news for some GI, some GI Bill beneficiaries, as the GI Bill benefits restored to vets dismissed for COVID vaccine refusal. Yeah. Thousands of veterans discharged from service during former President Joe Biden's administration for refusing the jab may regain eligibility for GI Bill education benefits, according to a Monday Department of Veterans Affairs announcement. Over 8,000 service members across the military were separated from service during the Biden administration for not complying with the Defense Department's COVID mandate, which required all service members to be fully vaccinated against the virus. Service members who refused the order were dismissed with general under honorable conditions, classifications hindering their ability to receive veterans benefits such as GI Bill assistance. In a January executive order, Trump reinstated those discharged under the previous mandate, stating that the vaccine mandate was an unfair and unnecessary burden on the service members, as well as the rest of us too. The Biden administration's authoritarian COVID mandates has upended the lives and livelihoods of thousands of service members and veterans, VA Secretary Doug Collins said in the announcement. We're proud to help implement Trump's executive order and make these veterans whole again. After the executive order, the Defense Department sent letters of apology in April to more than 8,700 service members who involuntarily separated, and sent correspondence to members who voluntarily separated, urging them to return to service. One of the most atrocious attacks on our military by the previous administration was the discharging and targeting of perfectly healthy warfighters who, empire defenders who refused to take an experimental vaccine implemented by an illegal mandate. That was first trotted out by Trump. Don't forget that. Well, no, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. Was it? Yeah, it was. It was trotted out by Trump. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said in the announcement. I love how Military Times doesn't call him Secretary of War. They're like, fuck that. That's bullshit. We must never let this happen again, and we must also right the wrongs of the past in order to restore trust. Of those discharged, there are currently 899 veterans eligible for GI Bill education benefits, the Defense Department found, but more could qualify. According to the announcement, the VA sent letters in September to veterans who already received upgraded discharges to alert them of this possibility, but the department urges all who were dismissed for refusing the vaccine to seek an upgraded status and apply for GI Bill benefits. Yeah. That whole thing, the mandate, right? And in the big cities too, there was, if you wanted to do anything, they were, go to restaurants or any public places like that, you had to have the vax. And if you didn't have it, that's a wrap. And there was even some, these were Democrats in New York who had talked about banning people from going to grocery stores to get, if they didn't have the vaccine, food. Mike Ozempeo. Okay. So this is the bullshit I was telling you about earlier. Trump says U.S. may be having discussions with Venezuela's Maduro. This is some dumb shit. Trump said on Sunday that the U.S. may be having discussions with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, suggesting his administration has not entirely cut off diplomacy with Caracas, as previous reports have said. Trumpy made the comments when asked about Secretary of State Aquaman's announcement that the State Department would be designating the so-called Cartel de los Soles, or Cartel of the Suns, as a, quote, foreign terrorist organization, though the group doesn't actually exist. That's just like Antifa. They made them a terrorist group, and it's not a thing. The term Cartel of the Suns was first used in the 1990s before Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez, came to power to describe two Venezuelan military generals with sun insignias on their uniforms who were involved in the drug trade. One of the generals was working with the CIA at the time, according to a 1993 60 Minutes report. Today, the term is used to describe Venezuelan military and government officials who allegedly profit from drug trafficking, but the Cartel of the Suns doesn't exist as a structured organization. Regardless of the reality, the U.S. claims that Maduro is the leader of the Cartel of the Suns, signaling it will use the terror designation as a pretext to target him. Trump was asked if the designation could justify the U.S. targeting Maduro's assets or infrastructure inside Venezuela. He claimed that it allows us to do that, though any military action without congressional authorization would be illegal under the Constitution. When has that stopped anybody? Trump then suggested the U.S. and Venezuela are talking. It allows us to do that, but I haven't said we're going to do that, and we may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out, but they would like to talk, he told reporters. Maduro has made clear that he's willing to reach some kind of deal with the U.S. and sent a letter to Trump after the U.S. began bombing alleged drug-running boats in the region. In the letter, the Venezuelan leader urged for diplomacy to resolve any issues and said he was ready to talk to Trump's special envoy, Rick Grenell, at any time. The New York Times reported in early October that Trump called off diplomacy with Venezuela, though another Times report on Friday cited an administration official who said the talks with Venezuela were not entirely dead. Officials say the arrival of the U.S. aircraft carrier Gerald Ford is meant to be used as leverage over Maduro, but it's unclear what sort of deal would satisfy the U.S. Trump has reportedly been briefed in recent days on options to bomb Venezuela, and the U.S. strikes on boats in the region have continued, killing at least 82 people since the bombing campaign began in early September. So, yeah, that seems to be a theme of the Trump administration, making, claiming groups that don't exist are terrorist groups, right? Like there's a group called the Beatles, and they're no longer a group, but they're a terrorist organization, even though it's too low. Sorry. So I haven't seen this new news about people about Mike Johnson saying that they're not going to do the vote or whatever because of national security. Fucker. As House vote looms, state lawmakers challenge Trump to release the Epstein files. After Trumpy's sudden about-face on the U.S. House of Representatives' imminent vote to force the release of files on deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, a group of state legislators on Monday urged Trump to prove he's serious by not waiting for Congress to make public materials from the federal case against his former friend. Now, Trump has said that he did say that he wanted the Republicans in the House to vote for this. Okay. And he probably said that because he knew that they weren't going to put it on the thing, even though they lied. In a letter provided to Common Dreams by the group Defend America Action, the 15 elected Democrats called on Trump and his administration to put the issue of the Epstein files to bed once and for all and focus on what the American people are concerned about, the affordability crisis, which has exploded on your watch. Just a few weeks ago, Americans from Georgia to Virginia to New Jersey registered their dissatisfaction with your economic performance with overwhelming victories for Democrats up and down the ballot. They noted that should have been a wake-up call for you and your administration, but instead you've turned to an all too familiar strategy of gaslighting the American people with tales of a booming economy that don't match reality. Americans are falling behind on utility bills and car loan payments as job growth has ground to a halt, and inflation, driven in part by Trump's sweeping tariffs, is costing average U.S. households at least $700 a month more than they're used to paying. We told you about that story. U.S. House Democrats and a few Republicans have long fought to make the Department of Justice release its files on the late financier, which Speaker Mike Johnson recently pushed off for weeks by refusing to swear in Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva, a delay he tried to blame on the government shutdown. As the shutdown standoff over a looming healthcare crisis came to an end, Johnson finally administered the oath of office to Grijalva, who swiftly became the crucial 218th signature on a discharge petition to force a vote on the Epstein files. While her decision set up a December vote, Johnson then moved up the timeline, with many House Republicans expected to vote for releasing the files as early as today, although there may be some dispute on that now. We'll have to check that out. Trump sent shockwaves through the U.S. on Sunday by suddenly declaring his support for the disclosure. He doubled down on Monday, telling reporters that he would sign the bill if it reached his desk, but also returning to his claim that the whole thing is a hoax. As the state legislators wrote to Trump, you have called the issue of the Epstein files a hoax and dismissed the numerous congressional efforts underway to pursue transparency, accountability, and justice for the hundreds of victims who suffered at Epstein's hands. This issue has again overtaken Washington, D.C., and you have mobilized enormous government resources up to and including meetings in the ultra-secure Situation Room to try to prevent the files' release. Your 11th hour decision to not fight a vote in the House that you were certainly going to lose is yet another dodge. You could order the full release of the files today so that we can all move forward and deal with the issues of our voters and yours care about, making life affordable for American families, they argued. Those priorities should be addressing the skyrocketing costs that are keeping families up at night: housing, food, energy, and health care. We need bipartisan solutions to the cost of living crisis, not multiple congressional committees, investigations, and precious floor time devoted to files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which you could release with the stroke of a pen, they continued, stressing the need for good partners and good policies at the federal level, good luck with that, to aid American families struggling with soaring prices. Release the file and let's get on with the business of the American people. Signatories to the letter include Iowa Representative Kenneth Crokin, not to be confused with Crocus, which is awesome, Vermont Representative William Greer, Colorado Senator Kathy Kipp, Michigan Representative Stephen Wooden, and Kentucky Representative Lisa Wilner. It is also signed by Pennsylvania Reps Danilo Burgos and Arvind Venkat, Maryland American Dells delegations. I don't know what that Dells is. Or is Maryland? That's the name. Okay. Ashanti Martinez and Vaughn Stewart, Wisconsin's Senator Melissa Ratcliffe and Representative Brian Clancy, and 4 lawmakers from New Hampshire, Reps John Clovis, Chris McAleer, Terry O'Rourke, and Terry Spar. So, yeah, I'll look into that, and we'll have an update on this tomorrow, probably on the Undercurrent with Laine and me. We'll delve in. I'll look into that as we go on, as the day progresses. And finally, in our propaganda watch, I saw this yesterday on the Y-Files, talking about PSYOPs, right? Psychological operations, and how you can how you can recognize a psyop yourself. I'm going to put this in the Substack links, but I figured you should have it right now too, in case you want to follow along. We're going to kind of briefly go over it. Let me put this in the thing here with the thing and the Glavin. Come on, fucker. You're going to paste? No? You're going to be a dick? Okay, we'll just do this then. How you like me now? Booyah. Okay. We got one over here. Okay. So what this is the NCI Engineered Reality Scoring System, right? So, and what this is basically, it's questions you can ask yourself about a certain news story or whatever, and what relates to it, right? Like how you would know it was a psyop. For example, so the NCI Engineered Reality Scoring System, what it does is you have these questions like, does the timing feel suspicious or coincidental with other events? Does it create an us versus them dynamic? Do powerful groups benefit disproportionately? And so on, right? So there's 20 questions, and the scoring, and each one is like, kind of like a 1 to 5, right? 1 meaning no, it's not, that's not it at all. And 5 meaning yes, that's definitely it. So like saying like our critics silenced or labeled negatively, that, and if there's a lot of critics being silenced because of it, you would score that a 5, right? And so then you do that for each of these questions on a particular incident that's happened. Yeah, like here, say a story about water contamination surfaces during a corporate scandal. Does the timing feel suspicious or coincidental with other events? Meaning, is it a distraction for something else going on, right? So not present, no signs of manipulation. 5 means clear, strong evidence of manipulation. And there's a scoring range here. So 0 to 25 means low likelihood of a psyop. Whereas when you get from 76 to 100, there's an overwhelming sign of psyops. And then like strong likelihood, moderate, that sort of thing. So the scoring here, you can do it yourself. Take your favorite psyop and see if you score, see if you can say, oh yeah, this is definitely a psyop. I think that's pretty fun. Maybe we'll do a ExtraBulla live where we'll maybe I'll have somebody on and we can talk about this, and we can play around with different topics and score each one and see what it does, and it should be interesting. It's pretty much a nice way of saying, I'm not quite sure if this is a psyop or not. So you can ask those questions to yourself and it should be fine. So that's it for Propaganda Watch. Now, we want to make sure that everybody in our community knows about our mutual aid folks that need help, our pals in the space. Of course, Justice for Aspen. She needs your help. She was stopped, has legal problems thanks to the fuckery of the Georgia legal system, where she was sitting in a passenger seat and somehow got arrested because the driver had drugs. We also have our buddy Chanda, who's dealing with the comeback of her cancer. She could use your help as well. Our buddy Cowboy Kitty, his sister-in-law, Natalia, is on the verge of being deported. She could use all the help you could get for her legal defense. And a couple of our buddies dealing with homelessness due to fire. Our buddy NoliDee could use your help, as well as our buddy Kevin over at Black Bear News. All the links are down in the description below. If you could help them out, really appreciate it. You know, if you can donate. If you can't, I understand, that's fine too. Please share out the links and tell those that don't know, and maybe they can help as well. And I just wanted to add this one little thing in for a moment. And you can do this if you want to or not. This is a little self-promotion. I told people on the secret show about this the other night. I started this channel called Shumdit, and it's just silly stuff, right? All it is, it's mostly just Bigfoot videos that I created using Sora. Yes, it's AI, but I totally admit it. I have embraced my AI overlords, and I'm making mostly Bigfoot videos. And there's also simple food recipes like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a bowl of cereal. All silly stuff. If you can, if you want to subscribe, it's at Shumdit right there. Maybe I can do this. Let me put this in the thing. Okay. Maybe this will work. Will this work? Is that going to work? Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Boop. All right. If you want to subscribe, that's fine. If not, if you want to share that out. It's just fun stuff. Just trying to do something a little bit different than, why is this not working? What is your deal? No way. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So finally, and, coming up tomorrow, like I said, the Undercurrent with me, and Laine P, we'll be talking about about Snap. Yes, it's been restored, or has it been restored? We'll tell you about the aftermath of what's going on, how people are still suffering, even though the government has reopened for business. And finally, today, if I can get there, there we go. All right. So a little science for you at the end of the show. Usually have some silly stuff about monkeys getting loose, but that's fine. Earth's earliest life, 3.3 billion years ago, revealed by faint biosignatures. So a new study covered fresh chemical evidence of life in rocks more than 3.3 billion years old, along with molecular traces showing that oxygen-producing photosynthesis emerged nearly a billion years earlier than previously thought. The international team, led by researchers at the Carnegie Institute for Science, paired cutting-edge chemistry with artificial intelligence, AI, to reveal faint chemical whispers of biology locked inside ancient rocks. Using machine learning, the researchers trained computers to recognize subtle molecular fingerprints left behind by living organisms, even when the original biomolecules have long since degraded. Among the collaborators was Michigan State University's Katie Maloney, an assistant professor in the Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences, who studies the evolution of early complex life and its impact on ancient ecosystems. Yes, indeed. Maloney contributed samples of exceptionally well-preserved 1 billion-year-old seaweed fossils from the Yukon Territory, Canada. These samples represent one of the first seaweeds known in the fossil record, when most life can only be viewed through a microscope. The study, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, not only deepens understanding of Earth's earliest biosphere, but also has implications for the search for life beyond Earth. The same approach could be used to analyze samples from Mars or other planetary bodies to detect whether they once harbored living organisms. And then there's a lot more there. But basically, they're just using AI to do that stuff. Now, that kind of stuff I can see, using AI for entertainment purposes. Yes, as long as you're not stealing from somebody. What the hell is this? Oh, okay. Never mind. Kind of out of it there. Using, and we go over this, using it as a tool, not something that you rely on, consistently, like, legal stuff or medical stuff, that sort of thing. Use it as a tool. Don't use it as a crutch, as we like to say. That being said, that's the end of the show for today. Like I said, we'll be on the Undercurrent tomorrow morning, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Specific time. This show will be back on Friday, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time. YouTube, Rumble, the Book of Faces. Come see us tomorrow. Come say hi to Laine, Auntie Laine. She will be glad to see you. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you when I see you. Peace!
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!